Yoel Romero will be making his debut in BKFC on September 12th in Hollywood, Florida. So that'll be interesting seeing Yoel Romero do bare knuckle boxing. His opponent is Theo Dukas. Who is Theo Dukas?
You don't want to know. You don't want to know.
And he's an MMA fighter with a record of 2-2. So obviously Yoel is going to be a huge favorite in this one. As an amateur, he had a record of 3-4. As a pro on the regional scene, he had a record of 2-2. Yoel has had some favorable matchups lately, like with Dwayne Crespo, power slapper Dwayne Crespo. He stopped him in a round, and then he stopped the Rasquatch, the Jamaican Shamrock. Michelle Pereira has a new opponent for August 23rd in Shanghai, China. It's Kyle Daukaus. Daukaus replaces Pereira's original opponent, Marco Tullio. Daukaus used to fight in the UFC. He actually had 7 fights in the UFC, 2 wins, 4 losses, and a no contest. Since no longer being part of the UFC, he picked up 4 wins in Cage Fury Fighting Championships, became their middleweight champion. He was actually supposed to defend the middleweight title a week before this fight with Michelle Pereira, but I assume he vacates the belt and that fight is off, and as he joins the UFC for the second time. Pereira will be a favorite in this fight. He's coming off a loss to Abus Magomedov. He fought very passively in that fight, way unlike how he normally fights. Maybe he was just traumatized by that experience, gassing out against Anthony Hernandez and getting ground and pounded 2-22 until the final round. Alex Caceres, aka Bruce Leroy, will be fighting in Dirty Boxing 3. That's August 29th in the Hangar in Miami, Florida, taking on Sean West, an MMA fighter with a record of 18-13-0. This will be Caceres' second bout in Dirty Boxing. He lost his first one to Said Yakub Kakramanov via decision. Caceres wants to get back into the UFC. He fought out his UFC contract last year, lost a decision to Sean Woodson, and is waiting for the UFC to give him a new contract and a new fight. And in the meantime, this is what he's doing.
That definitely works out, but mainly because I was just being inactive for such a long time, kind of saying like, we're going to resign you, we're just going to sit around and wait till we find you a good opponent. But it's been over a year, so I'm like, I got to go do something. So they basically told me like, well, you're a free agent, you can go do other fights if you want to. Whenever we resign you again, that's when you'll be fighting for the UFC again. So I'm just kind of waiting.
Veronica Hardy will take on Brogan Walker at UFC 320 October 4th in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile. Hardy will be the favorite. Brogan Walker's 0-2 in the UFC. That card recently added Joe Pyfer versus Abus Magomedov, 14-3 Pyfer versus 28-6-1 Abus Magomedov. After the suggestion that one championship versus PFL supercard should take place with fights like Rug versus Ngannou and Stamp versus Ditchewa, PFL Chairman Don Davis says, interesting, guess what we offered? PFL offered one championship to co-stage Champs versus Champs super event, and Chatri turned it down. He said no, obviously, because PFL would win almost all the fights, 8 weight classes. PFL wins 7-1. Muhammad Makai says if the UFC gives him a contract at 135, he'll take it. He fought at 125, but he's willing to join them again in the bantamweight division. It's almost like he's, just desperate and begging to come back into the organization, and they couldn't care less. He has fought 3 times since no longer being part of the UFC, 3 victories, 2 in MMA, 1 in karate combat. These are big mismatches in his favor. Definitely his potential is being wasted. He's 25. He'll never be able to get this time back that he's spending outside of the UFC, but we'll see how it all plays out. Artem Lobov says his next court date with his legal battle with Conor McGregor over Proper 12 Irish whiskey is set for December 9th. The dispute centers around Lobov's claim that he owned a share of the whiskey brand's sale, alleging he was instrumental in its creation and had an agreement with Conor entitling him to compensation. The case has faced delays, including a rescheduling earlier this year after Lobov amended his claim to reflect a new agreement date based on evidence retrieved from an old phone. The court allowed the change, but also ordered Lobov to cover most of McGregor's legal costs incurred after the amendment.
I found more evidence that I really wanted to submit that obviously was helping my case.
Yes.
Conor's team tried to block that evidence because it was too close to trial, but so I had to go into court and my lawyers had to fight his lawyers, and I was allowed to accept evidence because the judge could see that this is real evidence, this is not some fake stuff. this is real, and just unfortunate that I found it so close to the trial, you know. So I got a new trial date, but the costs are all reserved till trial, you know.
Okay.
So the costs are, you know, I don't have to pay any costs until the trial. But for me, I won't listen. Money, whatever money, I want my recognition. You know, listen, this whiskey never happens without Conor, of course. That's why it was made for him, you know. But I'm also one of the co-founders, you know, and that's what I want to show in this court. I want to show all my work, you know, the amount of work I had to do for this whiskey, you know, to go to market. It is just incredible. And I had some very unique know-how, you know, that, as I said to you, even industry experts, you know, didn't see the potential in entry-level whiskey, because at the time any entry-level whiskey that was launched was flopping, because Jameson was just taking up all the market share. But I could see, based on Conor's fans, I could see, you know, how he relates to the fans. I could see his marketing power, and I knew that entry-level whiskey was the way to go. And I was absolutely right. And it didn't really matter in the end, ultimately, which whiskey, you know, we went with, because if you recall, when it first launched, the whiskey got sold out immediately, and people were trading on eBay empty bottles of whiskey. So they just cared about Conor and his name and his image and everything else, not really so much what's inside the bottle. If you recall, I was going to do a book. You know, I wanted to do a book because they literally just pushed me to the side. No recognition for me, no money, no nothing. So I just wanted to do a book and write in the book everything, you know, that kind of went on and how I did the deal and how it all happened. So then once I announced the book, Conor contacted me and he was just saying to me, "Oh, you had nothing to do with the whiskey. What the fuck have you even done?" You know, just completely turned on me, telling me all these things that I've never heard from him before. You know, as you've seen the messages I shared before, he was so always kind to me and saying, "Artem, you know, you're my brother. You always have my back with this whiskey and with this fight. You know, I'm going to look after you." So then he's telling me, "You have nothing to do with this. You didn't do any of the whiskey." And I was like, "Hold on a second. This is all my work. My work is all over this. How can you say this? How can you do this to me?" And I was still going to proceed with the book. However, when I met the lawyers to get some legal advice about the book, I was told straight away, "Listen, this book is never going to see, you know, the light of day. They just going to, his lawyers, you know, and their lawyers are just going to, you know, bring you to court and you'll be fighting. You're going to spend an absolute fortune on legal fees, and, you know, the book is not going to come out for many, many years, and they're just going to basically destroy you. The only way for you to be able to do the book and be able to tell the full story of what actually happened is to go to trial in the high court, because all the evidence that I give there is going to be protected, you know, and I will be able to do a book if I want to, or whatever else afterwards, you know." So that's why I ended up at court.